Did you think Hollywood's golden age was all glamour and grace? Think again. Behind the flashing cameras and red carpets, some of the biggest stars were hiding shocking secrets, from scandalous affairs to arrests, addictions, and even murder. These aren't just rumors. These are 20 unbelievable crimes that your favorite old Hollywood icons were actually accused of. Some escaped justice, others weren't so lucky. So, how did they keep these dark stories out of the spotlight? Stay with us, because by the end, you'll never look at the golden age of Hollywood the same way again. Errol Flynn, the swashbuckler on trial for statutory rape. In the 1930s and 40s, Errol Flynn was Hollywood's ultimate leading man, charming, fearless, and always playing the hero. But off-screen, Flynn's real-life adventures were far more dangerous than anything scripted in a pirate movie. In 1942, Flynn was charged with statutory rape after two underage girls accused him of assault. The news hit like a bombshell. America's favorite swashbuckler was suddenly the villain in a courtroom drama that gripped the nation. Known for his wild lifestyle and famous catchphrase, "In like Flynn," the actor had built a reputation as a ladies' man. But this time, his charm couldn't smooth things over. The trial was a media circus. Fans packed the courthouse, refusing to believe their hero could be guilty. Flynn, always defiant, claimed, "I've had a hell of a lot of fun, and I don't regret a minute of it." After weeks of testimony, Flynn was acquitted. But while he walked free, his image was forever stained. Hollywood never looked at him the same way again. And Errol Flynn's case was just the beginning. The golden age was filled with stars whose off-screen lives were far darker than their glamorous roles. Next up was a legend whose smile hid secrets far bigger than silent films could ever reveal. Charlie Chaplin, paternity scandal, and accusations of predatory behavior. To the world, Charlie Chaplin was the tramp, the lovable underdog who made millions laugh during the silent film era. But behind the mustache and bowler hat was a man tangled in controversy. In 1943, Chaplin, then in his 50s, faced accusations of statutory rape after his relationship with 16-year-old actress Joan Barry became public. When Barry claimed Chaplin had fathered her child, things quickly spiraled. Chaplin denied it, but a paternity suit followed, and despite blood tests proving he wasn't the father, the court still ruled him responsible due to outdated laws. As if that wasn't enough, Chaplin's political views and personal life caught the attention of the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover launched a surveillance campaign labeling Chaplin as a communist sympathizer. Feeling hounded by America, Chaplin left for Europe in 1952 and never truly returned. Reflecting on his fall from grace, Chaplin once said, "I remain just one thing, a clown. It places me on a far higher plane than any politician." But Hollywood had already turned its back on him. And while Chaplin faded into exile, another starlet found herself at the center of a crime that no one could ignore. Because this time, it was murder. And the killer? Her own daughter, Lana Turner. The murder her daughter committed. In 1958, Hollywood's golden girl, Lana Turner, found her name splashed across headlines, but not for her latest film. Instead, the world was fixated on the brutal death of her boyfriend, mob enforcer Johnny Stompanato. The shocking twist? It was Turner's 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, who plunged the knife into Stompanato's chest. For years, Turner had been trapped in a toxic, violent relationship with Stompanato. The night of the murder, Cheryl claimed she acted to protect her mother during yet another abusive confrontation. The courtroom was packed as America debated, was it self-defense or a Hollywood cover-up? Turner, dressed in black and holding back tears, gave a performance more dramatic than any movie. The jury ruled it a justifiable homicide, but the scandal changed Turner's image forever. Speaking later, Turner said, "I can't change the past. I can only survive it." But survival in Hollywood wasn't easy when your name was linked to bloodshed. And just a few decades earlier, another star's career had been destroyed by a crime he didn't commit. But that didn't stop the world from believing the worst. Because for Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle, the party never really ended. It just turned into a nightmare. Fatty Arbuckle, the party that destroyed a career. In 1921, Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, literally and figuratively. Known for his slapstick comedy, Arbuckle was earning millions and living large. But a wild party at a San Francisco hotel changed everything when young. Actress Virginia Rappi died after the event. Arbuckle was accused of rape and manslaughter. The press had a field day, painting Arbuckle as a monster. Studios distanced themselves overnight. The truth was murky. After 3 trials, Arbuckle was acquitted, but the damage was done. His films were banned, his career shattered. In a rare public statement, Arbuckle said, "I have been acquitted, but what does that mean?" The shadow remains. Hollywood's first major scandal had claimed its victim, proving that fame could vanish in an instant. But not every scandal ended a career. For one actor, getting arrested only made him more dangerous, and somehow more popular. Because when Robert Mitchum got busted, it didn't ruin him. It made him a legend. Robert Mitchum, the bad boy, busted for marijuana. In 1948, tough guy actor Robert Mitchum was riding high in Hollywood. But behind his cool exterior, Mitchum lived life on his own terms, and that included a taste for rebellion. When he was caught in a police sting for marijuana possession, the news shocked conservative America. A Hollywood star behind bars? Unthinkable. Mitchum didn't beg for forgiveness. Instead, he shrugged and said, "It's just that I have 2 weaknesses, women and marijuana." He served nearly 2 months in jail, but instead of sinking his career, the scandal only fueled his bad boy image. Studios spun the story, and fans admired his nonchalant attitude. Incredibly, Mitchum bounced back stronger than ever, proving that sometimes breaking the rules made you even more marketable. But not everyone was so lucky. For some stars, scandal didn't just bruise their careers, it dragged them into a spiral they could never escape. And for Joan Bennett, it wasn't her crime, but her husband's bullet that nearly ended everything. Joan Bennett, a husband's crime that tarnished her name. By the early 1950s, Joan Bennett was one of Hollywood's most respected actresses, known for her elegance, talent, and a string of successful films. But her carefully crafted image shattered in an instant when a gunshot rang out in a Los Angeles parking lot. It wasn't Joan who pulled the trigger. It was her husband, famed director Walter Wanger, who, in a fit of jealous rage, shot Bennett's agent Jennings Lang in 1951. Wanger believed his wife was having an affair with Lang, and in classic Hollywood fashion, suspicion turned violent. Though Lang survived the shooting, the scandal nearly destroyed Joan's career. The media swarmed the story, turning a private marital dispute into front-page drama. Joan insisted there was no affair, calling the situation a misunderstanding fueled by paranoia. But in the court of public opinion, the damage was done. "I was guilty by association," Bennett later said. "It didn't matter that I hadn't done anything. Hollywood loves a scandal." Wanger served just 4 months in jail, but Bennett's punishment lasted far longer. Roles dried up, endorsements vanished, and the actress who once graced every marquee found herself shunned by an industry that turned its back when things got messy. Joan Bennett's story was a harsh reminder. In Hollywood, it didn't matter if you were innocent. If your name was tied to crime, you paid the price. But while Bennett was battling whispers and lost opportunities, another starlet was fighting demons far more dangerous, the ones created by the very studio that made her famous. Because for Judy Garland, fame wasn't just a dream. It was a nightmare wrapped in addiction and accusations. Judy Garland, accusations of substance abuse and erratic behavior. To the world, Judy Garland would always be Dorothy, the wide-eyed girl singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But behind that iconic voice was a life marked by relentless pressure, addiction, and scandal. From a young age, Garland was trapped in the machine of MGM Studios, where executives controlled every aspect of her life, from her diet to her sleep schedule. They fed her pills to keep her thin, more pills to keep her awake, and even more to help her sleep. It wasn't long before Judy became dependent. By the late 1940s, rumors swirled about Garland's drug use, unreliable behavior, and even theft to fund her growing addictions. Studios labeled her difficult, and the press painted her as a fallen star who couldn't handle success. "They'd give me pills when I was just a kid," Garland once revealed. "Then they'd wonder why I couldn't function without them." In 1950, MGM fired her, the same studio that had created her stardom. Public sympathy clashed with harsh judgment as Judy battled personal and professional collapse. Yet, despite the scandals and breakdowns, Garland remained a beloved figure. Fans rooted for her, but Hollywood offered little support. Her story exposed the darker side of fame, how studios built stars only to discard them when they cracked under pressure. And while Judy Garland's struggles played out in public, some scandals were quietly swept under the rug, especially when a studio's biggest male star was involved. Because when Clark Gable hit a man with his car, MGM made sure no one would ever hear the full story. Clark Gable, hit-and-run allegations, covered by the studio. Known as the King of Hollywood, Clark Gable was the embodiment of masculine charm, the suave leading man every studio adored. But in 1945, behind the scenes, Gable found himself at the center of a scandal that could have ended his reign. Late one night, Gable was involved in a car accident that left a pedestrian seriously injured. Witnesses whispered that Gable had been drinking. The situation was dire. A hit-and-run charge could destroy even the most powerful star. But this was the golden age, when studios like MGM had more control than the law itself. Enter Eddie Mannix, MGM's infamous fixer. Within hours, the story disappeared from newspapers. A studio employee reportedly took the blame, and Gable walked away untarnished. Still, those close to him claimed Gable carried deep guilt. He kept quiet, maintaining his public image as the dashing hero. "The studios protected us," Gable allegedly confided to a friend, but that protection came at a price. It was a reminder of how Hollywood's golden glow often hid darker truths, and how fame could shield you from consequences, if only temporarily. Yet, not every star had a studio willing to clean up their mess. For some, a single personal decision could lead to national disgrace. Just ask Ingrid Bergman, the woman whose love affair nearly got her banned from America. Ingrid Bergman, branded a homewrecker and exiled for adultery. By the late 1940s, Ingrid Bergman was considered Hollywood royalty, a symbol of grace and talent, known for classics like Casablanca. But in 1949, her carefully polished image shattered when she fell in love with Italian director Roberto Rossellini. The problem? Bergman was married. So was Rossellini. When news broke of their affair and Bergman's resulting pregnancy, America reacted with outrage. In an era obsessed with moral purity, Bergman was labeled a homewrecker and worse. U.S. senators condemned her from the Senate floor, calling her an influence for evil. Hollywood studios blacklisted her, and Bergman fled to Europe in disgrace. Years later, reflecting on the scandal, Bergman said, "I have sinned against the conventions, but not against my soul." It took nearly a decade before Hollywood forgave her, welcoming her back with an Oscar win in 1956. But the experience proved how quickly adoration could turn to condemnation, especially for women who dared to follow their hearts. While Bergman fought for redemption, another starlet faced a different kind of battle, one against her own mind, as whispers of scandal and tragedy consumed her life. Because for Gene Tierney, fame didn't just bring fortune, it brought heartbreak, secrets, and a struggle few could see. Gene Tierney, the scandal of a secret child and mental health struggles. Gene Tierney was the picture of perfection, stunning, talented, and rising fast in Hollywood's elite circles. But behind the beauty was a life marked by quiet suffering, scandal, and a heartbreaking secret. In the early 1940s, Tierney gave birth to a daughter with severe disabilities, the result of a fan-breaking quarantine to meet her while Gene was pregnant with rubella. The tragedy was kept hidden by studios eager to protect her image. At the same time, rumors swirled about Tierney's relationships, affairs with high-profile men, whispers of a secret child, and accusations that she had abandoned her family for fame. But the real battle was happening within. Tierney struggled with depression and mental illness, conditions Hollywood neither understood nor tolerated. By the late 1950s, she suffered a breakdown and was institutionalized, undergoing treatments that left her further isolated. "I knew something was wrong," Tierney later wrote. "But in Hollywood, you don't show weakness, you hide it." Her career never fully recovered, overshadowed by gossip and a lack of compassion from an industry obsessed with perfection. Gene Tierney's story wasn't just about scandal, it was about how Hollywood failed those who needed help the most. And while Tierney faded from the spotlight, others remained trapped in toxic cycles, where fame, power, and personal demons collided behind closed doors. Next was a leading man whose charm masked a darker reality, as whispers of violence and abuse followed him wherever he went. Spencer Tracy, allegations of domestic abuse, behind closed doors. To audiences, Spencer Tracy was the image of integrity, a gifted actor known for his strong, dependable characters. But behind Hollywood's golden curtain, Tracy's private life was anything but noble. Off-screen, Tracy battled alcoholism and a volatile temper. Rumors circulated about his troubled marriage and violent outbursts. Whispers of domestic abuse followed him for years, but the studios worked hard to protect one of their most bankable stars. His long-term affair with Katharine Hepburn became an open secret in Hollywood. But even Hepburn couldn't fully shield herself from Tracy's darker moods. Friends spoke of his unpredictable behavior, warm and witty one moment, aggressive and cruel the next. Spence was a complicated man, Hepburn later admitted, a brilliant actor, but a tormented soul. The public, however, never saw this side. MGM carefully crafted Tracy's image as the all-American man, proving once again that in Hollywood's golden age, reputation was often a carefully maintained illusion. But while Tracy's demons stayed hidden behind closed doors, other stars weren't so lucky. Some found themselves spiraling into scandal, where there was no studio left to save them. And for Barbara Payton, the fall from Hollywood stardom to handcuffs was as fast as it was tragic. Barbara Payton, from rising star to prostitution. Arrests. Barbara Payton had everything a Hollywood starlet could want: beauty, talent, and a future bursting with promise. But fame for Barbara came with a price she could never afford. By the early 1950s, Payton was starring alongside big names like James Cagney. But behind the scenes, her personal life was spiraling out of control. A string of public love triangles, violent altercations, and accusations of fraud turned her into tabloid fodder. As roles dried up, Payton turned to alcohol and drugs. Within a few years, the once rising star was arrested for prostitution, a shocking fall from grace that left Hollywood stunned. When asked about her downfall, Payton reportedly said, "I was always looking for love, but I kept finding trouble." By the time she was 39, Barbara Payton was broke, forgotten, and a cautionary tale of how quickly Hollywood could chew you up and spit you out. Her tragic descent showed that once the glamour faded, there was little mercy for those left behind. But some Hollywood stories didn't end in slow decline. They ended in sudden, suspicious deaths. Just like the case of George Reeves, the man who played Superman but couldn't escape his own fatal mystery. George Reeves, the mystery of Superman's suicide. George Reeves, the mystery of Superman's suicide. In the 1950s, George Reeves was a household name, the heroic face of Superman on TV. But in 1959, Reeves was found dead from a gunshot wound to the head. Officially, it was ruled a suicide. Unofficially, no one believed it. Friends insisted Reeves had been in good spirits, planning his wedding and future projects. Theories quickly spread. Was it murder disguised as suicide? Attention turned to his long-term affair with Toni Mannix, the wife of a powerful MGM executive rumored to have mob connections. When Reeves ended the affair to marry a younger woman, some believed revenge followed. The truth was buried along with Reeves. No charges were ever filed, and the case remains one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. If he was Superman, who could kill him? A reporter famously asked. Decades later, people still wonder, was George Reeves a victim of his own despair or of Hollywood's darkest secrets? While Reeves's death left only questions, others thrived on turning scandal into myth of their legend, embracing bad behavior like a badge of honor. And no one did that better than Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead, drug possession and public indecency rumors. Tallulah Bankhead wasn't just a star, she was a storm. Known for her sharp wit, wild parties, and complete disregard for Hollywood's rules, Bankhead lived life unapologetically. Throughout the 1930s and 40s, rumors of drug use, affairs, and public indecency followed her everywhere. She was accused of everything from smuggling narcotics to scandalous behavior at elite gatherings. Studios tried to silence the gossip, but Tallulah didn't care. "I have 3 phobias," she famously quipped: boring people, being bored, and not having a good time. While many stars feared scandal, Bankhead leaned into it, her rebellious spirit making her both admired and feared in equal measure. But even her charisma couldn't protect her from Hollywood's judgment forever. As roles dwindled, her lifestyle caught up with her, leaving behind a legacy of brilliance and chaos. Yet, for all of Bankhead's headline-grabbing antics, some scandals went beyond wild behavior, venturing into true crime territory. That would shock even the most jaded insiders. like the unsolved murder of William Desmond Taylor, a case that exposed Hollywood's darkest underbelly. William Desmond Taylor, the director found dead in a Hollywood mystery. In 1922, acclaimed director William Desmond Taylor was found dead in his Los Angeles home, a single bullet to the back. The murder rocked Hollywood. Taylor wasn't just any director. He was connected to some of the biggest stars of the silent era. Soon, a web of secrets unraveled, revealing affairs, drug use, blackmail, and a list of suspects pulled straight from Hollywood's elite. Actresses like Mabel Normand and Mary Miles Minter were dragged into the scandal, their reputations forever tainted by association. Despite a flood of theories, from jilted lovers to studio conspiracies, Taylor's killer was never found. The case remains one of Tinseltown's greatest unsolved crimes. Hollywood is a place where they'll pay you $1,000 for a kiss and 50 cents for your soul, a reporter wrote in the aftermath. Taylor's death marked a turning point, forcing studios to impose moral clauses and tighter control over their stars. But no amount of rules could prevent the next wave of scandals, as more stars found themselves trapped between fame and infamy. Because in Hollywood, the spotlight doesn't just reveal, it also destroys. Frances Farmer, institutionalized and accused of violence. Frances Farmer was once hailed as one of Hollywood's brightest stars, beautiful, talented, and fiercely independent. But in an industry that demanded obedience, Farmer's refusal to play by the rules made her a target. By the late 1930s, her clashes with studios and rejection of the Hollywood lifestyle earned her a reputation as difficult. Soon, stories of erratic behavior, public outbursts, and drunken arrests began to surface. In 1943, after a highly publicized courtroom meltdown, Farmer was declared mentally unstable and committed to a psychiatric institution. There, her life took a darker turn. Rumors spread of forced treatments, abuse, and even a lobotomy, though that was never confirmed. What was certain is that Hollywood had abandoned her, discarding a woman who refused to conform. Years later, Farmer reflected, "I wasn't a rebel, I just wanted to be honest." But Hollywood doesn't like honesty. Her tragic story became a symbol of how the system crushed those who didn't fit its mold. But while Farmer was locked away and forgotten, others were spiraling in the public eye, not from mental illness, but from living too fast and owing too much. And for Mickey Rooney, the price of gambling and bad decisions nearly cost him everything. Mickey Rooney, gambling debts and fraud allegations. At just 5 feet tall, Mickey Rooney stood as one of Hollywood's biggest stars. From child prodigy to box office sensation, Rooney's charm lit up screens throughout the 1930s and 40s. But behind that boyish grin was a man drowning in gambling debts and scandal. Rooney's appetite for risk wasn't limited to casinos. His personal life was a whirlwind of 8 marriages, endless affairs, and financial missteps. By the 1950s, whispers of unpaid debts and shady connections to bookies filled the tabloids. Accusations of fraud and bounced checks followed him from city to city. "I made a lot of money," Rooney once admitted, "but I spent more than I made, and then some." Despite his troubles, Rooney's talent kept him afloat longer than most. But his golden boy image was long gone, replaced by stories of courtroom appearances and desperate attempts to stay ahead of creditors. His fall from grace showed that even Hollywood's most beloved faces weren't immune to self-destruction. Yet, while Rooney's scandals were splashed across newspapers, some stars slipped into disgrace quietly, with one shocking act that no one saw coming. Like Hedy Lamarr, whose final headlines weren't about beauty or brilliance, but about shoplifting. Hedy Lamarr, arrested for shoplifting. Dubbed the most beautiful woman in film, Hedy Lamarr was more than just a pretty face. She was also a brilliant inventor, co-creating technology that would one day lead to Wi-Fi. But by the 1960s, Hollywood had forgotten her, and Lamarr's story took a humiliating turn. In 1966, Lamarr was arrested for shoplifting jewelry from a department store in Los Angeles. The public was stunned. How could a former star of her stature fall so low? Lamarr claimed it was a misunderstanding, but it wasn't her first arrest. Another incident followed in 1991, painting a picture of a woman struggling with the loss of fame and fortune. Reflecting on her faded stardom, Lamarr once said, "Any girl can be glamorous. All you have to do is stand still and look stupid." But behind that sharp wit was a deep sadness, a genius forgotten by the very industry she helped define. Her story was a harsh reminder that in Hollywood, beauty fades, fame is fleeting, and yesterday's stars can become today's headlines for all the wrong reasons. Yet, some didn't just survive scandal. They thrived on it. And no one turned controversy into a career boost quite like Mae West. Mae West, jailed for corrupting morals on stage. Before she ever stepped foot in Hollywood, Mae West had already mastered the art of scandal. In an era when women were expected to be modest and silent, Mae was loud, bold, and unapologetically herself. She wasn't just ahead of her time, she was decades beyond it. In 1927, at the height of her Broadway career, Mae wrote, produced, and starred in a play called Sex. The title alone was enough to shock New York's conservative elite. But Mae didn't care. She wasn't in the business of playing it safe. The play was raw, provocative, and tackled taboo subjects like prostitution, female desire, and societal hypocrisy. It didn't take long for the authorities to step in. Mae West was arrested and charged with corrupting the morals of youth. She was sentenced to 8 days in jail, a punishment meant to humiliate her and serve as a warning to anyone else thinking of pushing boundaries. But Mae didn't see it as punishment. She saw it as publicity. "I believe in censorship," she famously said after her release. "After all, I made a fortune out of it." Rather than shy away from the controversy, Mae leaned into it. She strutted out of jail in style, reporters hanging on her every word. The arrest didn't ruin her. It launched her. Overnight, she became a household name, known not just for her curves and quips, but for her fearless attitude. When Hollywood came calling, Mae brought that same defiance to the silver screen. Films like She Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel weren't just box office hits, they were cultural earthquakes. Her suggestive one-liners and sultry persona made her a star, but also a frequent target for censors desperate to keep her in check. Mae turned every attack into an opportunity, proving that a woman could own her sexuality without apology. She was a pioneer, using humor, wit, and boldness to challenge society's double standards. But behind the jokes and glamour, Mae West was making a serious statement. Women didn't have to play by anyone else's rules. Her legacy wasn't just built on fame, it was built on fearlessness. In a world where most actresses were punished for stepping out of line, Mae thrived on rebellion. "When I'm good, I'm very good," she once purred. "But when I'm bad, I'm better." Mae West's story is proof that sometimes breaking the rules isn't just an act of defiance, it's the key to immortality. Yet, while Mae knew how to control her scandals, others weren't so lucky. Some stars found themselves caught in a far more dangerous game. where the lines between fame, fortune, and crime blurred beyond recognition. And No Tale captures that descent into darkness, quite like the story of Bugsy Siegel and Virginia Hill, Hollywood's most notorious crime couple. Bugsy Siegel and Virginia Hill, Hollywood's crime couple. In the shadows of Hollywood's glitz, mobster Bugsy Siegel and actress Virginia Hill were living a life straight out of a gangster film. Only this wasn't fiction. Siegel, one of America's most notorious criminals, found the perfect partner in Hill, a fiery starlet known as much for her underworld ties as for her beauty. Together, they blended Hollywood glamour with organized crime, hosting lavish parties while laundering money and dodging law enforcement. Hill was no innocent bystander. She was rumored to be a courier for mob cash and wasn't shy about her dangerous connections. In 1947, Siegel was gunned down in Hill's Beverly Hills home, a brutal end to a life of crime. Hill later fled to Europe, her reputation forever tied to blood, betrayal, and the dark side of Tinseltown. "I'm no lady," Hill once said. "I'm a gangster's moll, and proud of it." Their story closed an era where Hollywood and crime danced dangerously close, proving that beneath the surface of fame and fortune, the golden age was anything but pure. Because when the lights dimmed and the cameras stopped rolling, the real drama wasn't on the screen. It was in the lives of the stars who paid the ultimate price for living in the spotlight.